everybody. This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
Today we're going to talk about one of our most anticipated movies of the year that we finally got a chance to see.
So excited that it finally came out and that we got to see it.
Oh, yeah. Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Before we start talking about that proper, though, like right away, I figure we might as well talk about at least a couple of the trailers we saw beforehand, because some of them are definitely going to be movies that we're going to want to talk about later.
Yeah.
For one, Queen and Slim.
Yes.
With Daniel Kaluuya. Oh, that looks fucking
modern
astounding.
day Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, God.
Oh.
It looks so fucking cool. I'm so excited for that movie.
Yeah.
That dude is easily going to win an Oscar at some point in his career, if not very, very soon.
Yeah.
He looks...
I hope so. He's intense.
I've said this before about other actors and actresses, specifically one of them being, now I forget their names, but fucking Booksmart. The girl, Beanie Feldstein's pretty great too, but I forget the other girl's name.
Yeah.
But she is effortlessly charming.
Yeah.
And I feel like Daniel Kaluuya has it's a different way about it, obviously, but he has that exact same thing where it's just like, oh my God, how can you now find this guy to be just like the coolest dude in the planet?
Yeah, he's super charismatic and
so much. Almost unfair.
Yeah. little bit.
But yeah, definitely looking at that one. And then the other one, fucking The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
That trailer.
Oh, seeing it up on the big screen like that.
Yeah, in that fucking box.
Yeah, because like watching it in the box on like a computer screen or whatever, like it's so much smaller.
Oh yeah.
And so then seeing it up on the big screen was fantastic.
It's I loved the way, like, if you didn't know, if you showed that to some kid who had no idea what that movie was or whatever, you'd just be like, oh, I'm going to show you a movie. They would assume it's from the fucking 30s or 40s or something. It looks exactly like it, except, I mean, there's that one shot with those like tentacles that I'm assuming were CGI.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly.
Or something.
Yeah, I don't know how the story is going to go. I don't really know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that's going to look. I'm sure it's going to look a little more modern, but just the shots that they were showing in the trailer was just like, holy shit, that is astounding. The idea that technology has come all this way to make like the biggest and grandest and clearest, look at a movie you could get, and to purposefully be like, no. We're going to cut it down to the way it fucking, the bare minimum to make it a movie, essentially. And it's going to be spellbinding, especially with those two. I'm excited to see Pattinson. I know he's had a bunch of really good roles lately. I haven't seen any of them.
I haven't either. I haven't seen him in anything but the Twilight movies.
Like, fucking, there's a movie called Good Time or Good Times that came out recently that he's in that people have, fawned over it. And I'm like, oh, that would probably be a good one.
I know a girl I work with really likes Remember Me.
Oh, God.
But in the like cheesy movie sort of way.
Yeah.
Like,
not necessarily showcasing his range.
No.
I think this probably will, though. It'll be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then he gets to be Batman. He's Batman.
He's Batman?
He's Batman. He's the new Batman.
I didn't know he was Batman. He has the chin for Batman.
Yeah, he's got the jawline that you need for fucking Batman. But yeah, that's pretty exciting. It's like, see him in this.
To go from Twilight to Batman.
Yeah, right. I mean, I know we talked about this once before, but the idea that dude just has fuck you money.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he has Twilight money so hard that it's like, I can do the fucking random ass lighthouse picture with Willem Dafoe and shit.
Who the fuck wouldn't want to work with Willem Dafoe?
Right? Like, you get to work on a really interesting project with a really up and coming director, because fucking The Witch was one of my favorite goddamn movies. So Robert Eggers, I'm like all on board for that.
Yeah.
You get to work with Willem Dafoe. I don't know if he's worked with him before. It's possible.
Yeah.
But even so, I bet you'd want to work with him again.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like you get to work with someone really great like that, do a really interesting and unique movie.
Yeah.
And then just be like, and I guess I'll do Batman too, whatever.
He hit the like Hollywood lottery that he was able to like bounce back from those awful movies.
I mean,
and
I don't.
I mean, I know he hasn't like bounced back and is like a big time. Like
not yet though.
Not yet, but exactly. Like he has the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I don't think anybody placed the blame of those movies on him. I'm sure tons of people hated him because he was in it, just as like a guilty by association kind of thing. Or it's like, those movies sucked and you were in those movies, so you suck.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone was ever like, the reason those movies are bad is because of Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
There's
so much wrong with those movies.
The material he was given
that's a different show.
Yeah, downright horrifying.
Yes.
But yeah, the movie itself, though,
Mm-hmm.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That was
It just to start it, like with the like Columbia Pictures
yeah, the old school
old school
Columbia
logos
Pictures.
and the old school font for it,
Oh
like
yeah.
sets the tone immediately,
I mean,
like
it's.
every other Tarantino
I was gonna
film.
say
But
at least recently that's been sort of the game. I know that
hmm
Hateful Eight had a very like stylized, old looking logo, as
hmm
did Django and whatnot. I get you.
yeah,
It's a wonderful little scene setter before
hmm
the movie even starts. You're kind
yeah.
of in a time and place. I guess the first real question I would have for you about it is, was it what you thought it was going to be in terms of like when you heard about it and saw the
hmm
trailer and all that?
hmm
Did it hit where you thought it was gonna?
So I knew going into it, with it being Tarantino, that there was going to be something in there to twist history, because that's what
Mm,
he does. I love it. So it wasn't exactly what I was thinking and what I was expecting going into it, but I'm not disappointed.
yeah.
The whole Manson family plot line, not well,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
their whole story and that played into it a lot more and a lot earlier into the movie than I anticipated.
mm, I definitely had a sort of a frame of mind that I was hoping that there would be quite a bit of the whole Manson family
Hmm
angle to it.
hmm
So I was definitely, again, I know that you weren't displeased, but I
Yeah,
was very pleased. Where it was just like, oh, okay, here it is, here we go. Like it didn't take a very long time to show the girls for the first time and to
right.
sort of to weave that into the like story as it was.
Oh yeah.
So it was fun to watch them. And I did read later that when the first time you see them, they're picking garbage and all that,
hmm
and they're all singing a song.
hmm
That's a Charlie Manson song.
Of course
Like
it
that's a
is.
real Charlie Manson song.
I
It's like,
expect no less from Tarantino.
yeah, it's like it's both completely obvious and yet also something that's like, how would you even know?
Yeah.
Nobody fucking knows any Charlie Manson songs, but fucking Tarantino, he was like, well, it's got to be
Yeah.
obviously.
Don't get me wrong. I loved every minute of that movie.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, it's kind of a slow burn, but it's perfect for the setting.
Yeah, it's a
Like,
hangout movie.
yeah.
It kind of just strikes me like Tarantino being the master. Like he both has he's both a master of a movie with like an intricate plot and
hmm
also movies that have just no discernible plot whatsoever. Where it's like, what is
yeah.
even like what is where is this through line from the beginning of this movie to the end of this movie? And it's like, who
Yeah.
fucking cares?
Yeah.
That's not the point. Like there's not some ridiculous like, oh, here's the inciting incident and then here's the call to action and then here's the, it's like, no, that's not how this fucking shit gets put together, man.
Yeah.
Like you're here, you learn about the characters and who they are, you learn who Rick Dalton is. I
hmm
loved, oh my god, it was like, I hesitate to call it like the most Tarantino movie of all of his movies
okay.
because it's both like the most Tarantino and least Tarantino of all of his movies. Because when it was starting and they got to that bit with Al Pacino
Yeah.
and he's telling them about what happens to old stars as they get hired to get beat up and all
Yeah. Yeah.
that felt very Tarantino of like, here's a guy, he's going to sit down and he's going to talk to someone for a while and just have that sort of that propulsive conversation with him. And then from then on, I didn't really feel like there were that many of those kinds of moments. There were very different moments for a
hmm
Tarantino movie to me. But there wasn't a lot of that like spitfire back and forth like what the Hateful Eight was
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
front to finish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like everyone has just this like big snappy long argument conversation kind of thing. That really didn't happen.
hmm
It was a lot more subdued, a lot quieter. Like
Yeah.
all those moments with Sharon Tate where it was like she had like 4 lines in that movie. She barely says anything in that movie, yet she's like almost the emotional center of that movie. And
hmm
that sitting in that theater
Yeah.
just like soaking it in and that
Yeah.
feeling of like, oh my god,
Like,
this is.
people love it.
And even like Rick's little breakdown in his trailer after he
Yeah.
fucks up the
Oh my
scene
God.
where it's like just him yelling at himself about it and fucking
Yeah.
the most hilarious way to like threaten suicide, just to tell your reflection that
Yeah.
you're gonna kill him. Oh, that was brilliant.
That was fantastic and absolutely like the ramblings of a drunken man.
Oh yeah. Who also, another thing, I did watch quite a few videos of like Tarantino and DiCaprio and even like Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie talking about the movie and their characters and all that sort of stuff. And apparently Leo and Tarantino sat down and talked about it, and they were referencing an old actor from one of those kind of movies, like the Bounty or
Yeah, yeah.
shows, like the Bounty Law show.
Yeah.
It was a guy, he was on it for like a season or two, and then he killed himself. Like he was a big alcoholic and he wound up killing himself. And people have looked back on him and his story and been like, it's highly possible that he was undiagnosed bipolar.
Yeah.
Like back in those days, they didn't fucking know what that shit was. They didn't know why your brain was doing that to you.
Yeah.
It was just happening. And then you'd just medicate with alcohol. So he became an alcoholic and then eventually just fucking killed himself.
Yeah.
And they figured out like, oh shit, Rick Dalton's probably undiagnosed bipolar then. And they never said it. They never made it a huge point in the movie, but they were
Yeah.
like, that was where Leo played it from. And so that scene in the trailer is so, sorry, the scene in the trailer is fantastic. The
Right.
moment that I loved was when he fucking broke on set and he was just like begging the director to cut. And he's like, no, just keep going. He's like, please, can we just go back to one? You know,
Yeah.
can we please just go back to one and we'll do it from there, please? You know, and that pleading and that like, oh my God,
Yeah.
please, I'll get it right for you. I swear I'll get it right for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
That really got to me. I was like, oh shit, dude, that is rough. Which then towards the end of that makes that moment so fucking great when she tells him like, that was the best acting I've ever seen. Because even though that's in the trailer, like something that we've seen since then, with all that extra context and all that extra shit,
It
when that
hits so much
happens,
harder.
I felt for him more than I've felt for any fucking like superhero character in any of those movies I've ever seen. And not to specifically shit on superheroes,
Right.
but it's like those movies always try to hit you with the like real big feeling moment towards the end. Like, oh, what is he feeling? And it's like, I don't really care because this is all just kind of lightweight. It's just a bunch of things flying around and blowing up and whatever. And there's too high of stakes, so it feels like nothing matters.
Yeah.
But then in this case, it's literally the only stakes is like he wants to do a good job.
Yeah.
And someone that he now considers a peer after she kind of showed him up tells him that it was the best acting she's ever seen. It's like, oh my God, that was beautiful. I loved it. And that itself almost felt a little not anti-Tarantino, but just not quite a Tarantino moment of like that much success in the moment. There's usually always some sort of a terrible trade-off for success. But in this case, it just felt really real and genuine. I really liked it.
Yeah. I think playing into the whole like undiagnosed bipolar thing too, like I don't remember exactly when it was after one of his like bad days or whatever on set, whatever it was, and they come home and then Roman Polanski pulls up next door and he sees them and he's like instantly happy about it.
Oh yeah,
And like
yeah.
and now he's like happy and like, yeah, I'm fine. Like it was like a switch.
Yeah. And it's like it's definitely not a detriment to know that.
Yeah.
Like to be like, oh, so they literally played it that way. Because, you know, a lot of times it's like, oh, you'd prefer the audience just sort of read it how they read it.
Right.
But knowing it, I think it lends a lot to the performance itself and knowing sort of where he was coming from for it. So little things can kind of click into place that they might not have otherwise.
Yeah.
But yeah, and despite all that sort of, I mean, it's not like it's like anti-Tarantino, like he's doing something super crazy, but it just didn't feel quite the same.
Right.
But on that,
A lot less blood.
oh yeah, huge. I figured we'd sort of leave the kind of finale till the end to kind of talk about it all together.
I mean, I'm just saying the movie as a whole, there's a lot less blood than typical.
Like, but it's so Tarantino because it like that movie lives in the space that everyone in all of his other movies fucking talks about. You know what I mean? They're like, since that was his childhood, that's his characters' childhoods, and thinking about that, you know, that kind of music and that kind of scene, these kind of actors, those kind of movies, but nobody talks about them in this movie because that's just their life. That's just where they live. So it's like so Tarantino that it takes away a lot of his normal things that he would do because it's like, well, shit, I can't talk about the 60s because it is the fucking 60s. Who does that?
It got too meta.
Yeah. So it's like, and I so much prefer it this way where it's like, okay, well, if they can't really talk about that stuff, then just kind of let it fall to the side and do other things with it. Fucking talk about effortlessly charming. Goddamn Brad Pitt.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
He's so great.
It's so unfair how fucking great he is. He just literally just the first time you see him in any movie he's in, it's just like, oh, there we go. All right, we're in good hands. Again, it's another moment where it's like, yeah, it's kind of spoiled in the trailer, but it's like, oh, dude, who gives a shit? But that like basically the first line you hear from him when they're doing that interview at the top in that like inside movie documentary thing, or it's just like Cliff helps carry the load. Like, is that how you describe it, Cliff? What, carrying his load? Yeah, that's about right. Like, A, such a Brad Pitt line.
Oh yeah.
And B, what a like character introducing moment. It's like, especially because he gets a few of those throughout the movie. Like, we love pussy. I bet we do. Or however he phrased it.
Yeah.
Even though I know that like people auditioned for these roles, but I can't imagine anyone other than Brad Pitt playing Cliff.
Yeah.
It's I mean honestly, I can't really think of anybody else to play Rick Dalton either.
They're just such the perfect duo.
I mean, goddamn, so great to see Leo again.
Yes.
And I feel so weird just calling him Leo, but that's just the way I always think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just comes out as just Leo. But seeing him again finally after fucking, like 4 years since The Revenant.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the last thing that he was in.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, fuck yeah. Give me all of it. Give me a whole, that's why I really didn't give a shit if it was almost 3 hours long. It's like, give me more.
Yeah.
I really dug all the, because it's kind of just almost a series of vignettes that are stitched together that make a movie, not so much a story, but I loved how like each of those little vignettes had someone in it. It's like, oh yeah, and then he fucking meets up with Al Pacino, and you see him a little bit later, but that's kind of his moment.
Yeah.
And he gets to set and shit, and there's fucking the Kurt Russell sequence.
Yep.
Oh, Timothy Olyphant, the sequence where he's acting with him, which was wonderful.
Oh, Timothy Olyphant. Oh, I smiled the entire time he was on the screen.
Oh yeah, and what's so great about it too is like, obviously, we loved him in The Crazies, loved him in Scream 2. Is there specific other things? Obviously, I know you loved Santa Clarita Diet, so seeing him in that was probably.
Oh my god! Especially because that was more recent than The Crazies is when I had seen him like the most in.
What's fun too is that he's a Western actor. Like he was on I think it's Justified. Oh shit, I forget what fucking show it was, but he was like the lead on a Western show for years on like HBO or something. And so it's like he knows what he's fucking doing in these scenes. He's done this for years. So it's like playing a guy.
He didn't have to like learn to ride a horse for this movie.
No, not a chance. So it's like that's a really fun moment there. I loved even though I personally never really saw him in anything, but I really liked Luke Perry's scene. The guy in like the white coat when Leo's giving his great performance, when Rick gives the really good one, he throws the girl to the ground. The black guy from Boston or whatever who comes in to talk to him.
The brother from Boston.
Yeah, that's Luke Perry.
Okay.
Who just recently passed away. But he was on 90210, something like that. He was on one of those like early to mid 90s teen pop sensation shows, and he was like the next like James Dean kind of guy, the young, good looking, charismatic kind of actor guy. So having him play a part in this kind of movie at the age where he is, where he's kind of doing the Rick Dalton thing, where it's like, yeah, you were big back then and now you're kind of whatever. It is a shame that he passed, but it was a great scene, and just a good performance from him. Apparently Burt Reynolds was going to be in it before he passed as well, but he was going to play Bruce Dern's part as George Spahn at the ranch, the blind guy.
Oh.
That was going to be Burt Reynolds' scene.
Nice.
It's like, okay. I mean, I love me some Bruce Dern, so I got no problem with him being in it. But it's like, that would have been interesting. Fucking Burt Reynolds. Speaking of the fucking Spahn Ranch, though, that was probably the scariest moment in a Tarantino movie I've ever seen. Like legitimate, like where it's like creepy and like dreadful.
Yeah.
Like as much as other scenes have had like real, high tension and shit, like the basement shootout in Inglourious Bastards or something like that. That was the only scene where it was just like, oh my God, this is fucking creepy.
Yeah.
These girls coming out of that like abandoned motel front and just staring at them.
Yeah.
And of course, fucking Brad Pitt just taking it like it's nothing. Just like, well, this is weird.
Yeah.
Also, another thing, I don't know how I didn't even notice the name in the credits or anything. Maybe you were just like, oh no, yeah. But Squeaky, the redhead, the girl who's like in the house and talks to him, whatever, that's Dakota Fanning.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah.
I had no fucking clue. I saw that later. I didn't even see it in the credits when we saw it. I saw it later online. I was like, that was Dakota Fanning?
I saw it in the opening credits. I was Dakota Fanning's in this?
Well, I missed it. But
I love Dakota.
Yeah, I mean, no, it was great. It's not like how could that be Dakota Fanning? She's terrible. It was more just like, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I want to try to cover as much as we can before we get to that ending, because that's really where like the meat of it and the what the fuck of it all is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did start sort of talking about this earlier and then I got completely sidetracked, but just all of that wonderful backstory footage that was shot of like the shit from this movie he was in, the shit from that movie, that moment where they fucking digitally put Leo into The Great Escape
Yeah.
and shit. And it was just like, what the fuck? This is so cool. And his episode of FBI
Yeah.
and fucking the little bits of Bounty Law and stuff like that. Like all of that shit was so much fun. And that goddamn moment where he's talking to him about like, that was a real flamethrower, and they cut to him operating it. Like, we do something about that heat? Seriously? It's a flamethrower. All of that shit was fun. And who knew how that was going to set up at the end?
Yeah.
But just
Did
all of
you
that.
did you catch it when he went in the shed for something else earlier in the movie? Did you catch
Oh,
that
no.
the flamethrower was sitting on the ground?
I didn't. No, I did not. That's funny.
Yep. It was there. I saw it. I was like, he took it.
I figured. I mean, something to sort of discuss. People have talked about it. Apparently, the Bruce Lee estate was not particularly thrilled with that sequence with him and Brad Pitt and all that.
That the stunt double.
Yeah,
beat
kicked
up.
his ass.
Yeah.
For one, it took me until reading online to realize that was a flashback scene and not a dream sequence.
Oh.
Because I was like, okay, it finally clicked afterwards where it was like, okay, it's because it's an episode of The Green Hornet. Like that's what it is. So it's a flashback to when he was on The Green Hornet and he talked to Bruce Lee outside and all that shit happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Because in my head, it seemed more like he was like, what would happen if I was on set?
Yeah.
And then it did all that shit. And then he was like, yeah, they're probably right to not invite me. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of thought it was so over the top and like spectacular. Like he throws him into a fucking car and all that shit. So then when I realized, I was like, oh, it was supposed to be kind of a flashback. Like, oh, that's okay. I kind of get a little bit more why they would be a little bit pissed. Because if it was just a dream sequence and it was supposed to be like super exaggerated.
Yeah.
Which I guess it still can be because Cliff's not, obviously, he's not the most reliable narrator.
Yeah.
But like, now I understand that it's like, since they're sort of purporting it to be like a true story, that's like, okay, I get why you're a little pissed. But, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Cliff's little quip after that, flashback sequence, he goes, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
That I loved that. I remembered that specifically. So like nod and like makes sense.
Obviously, Cliff's whole thing, his dog. What a good dog.
Such a good dog. Oh my god! And that face, I just want to smush it.
It's so. And what's really funny though is that it's like we keep talking about stuff and being like, all right, we'll wait until towards the end to talk about the climax, and just realizing how much shit comes full circle in that climax.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like you start talking about anything and you're like, well, hold on, because we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit,
So we've started a dozen ideas.
Yeah, and they all fucking wind up there.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed the way that fucking Spawn Ranch scene like wouldn't end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you kept imagining at some point it would cut away, like cut back to Rick, cut back to Sharon, cut back to something else.
Yeah.
And then come back to Cliff a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it just stayed there really kind of cemented that like isolated feeling of like, holy shit. And I believe, I mean, as much as I loved Helter Skelter and I read it and I know a bit about, the Manson family and shit, I don't recall this story specifically, but I read that there was like a stuntman who went out to Spawn Ranch and never came back. Like a real person who something like that happened. So this was kind of a fictionalized version of that, even where Cliff goes off to this place.
Tarantino.
Yeah. But so that whole time, and especially with how much it's sort of sitting and waiting and just kind of happening, that you're like, when is the fucking shoe gonna drop? When is something really bad gonna happen here? And then it gets kind of interrupted when he meets with George and he's just kind of ridiculous. He's just like, I'm fucking blind. Get out of here. And he's like, all right, whatever. And then that whole sequence repeats the shit out of that hippie.
Yeah.
That was pretty great.
But yes.
So I really liked that sequence, but it definitely felt like just the scene that wouldn't die. Like, oh my God, holy shit, this just keeps going. And they go and fucking get Tex and shit to come out and like confront him and all that. Which again, another thing that comes fucking full circle at the end of that movie. Oh man.
I love the scenes with the younger girl actress.
On the set with with Rick.
Yes.
That was good.
when he's like sitting there and explaining the book that he's reading,
Oh
and
yeah,
then just
yeah.
starts like breaking down.
Mhm.
First, the little snide remark of "you'll be living it in 15 years," or
That was so good. She's like,
What?
what? No, nothing, darling. What do you call her? Pumpkin Puss or something? She's like,
Yeah.
I don't appreciate names like Pumpkin Puss, but I'll let it slide because you're clearly sad.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss any other characters because I know there's just a
Yeah.
shitload of them. I did like the director, like finally a director who believes in him and wants him to do something. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, how are people going to know it's me? Finally, a director who's like, you're not here to be fucking shoot 'em up cowboy
Yeah.
Rick Dalton. Like, you need to play a character.
You're
and
not
finally,
J.K. Hill.
Exactly. Finally giving him something
Yeah.
to really put his fucking teeth into.
Give him some substance.
Yeah, and then he pulls it off, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, "Fucking hey, dude!" And he finally feels good about himself.
That was, and I love that they make mention that he like ad-libbed the one line.
Oh yeah, yeah,
The-
yeah.
The triple
Beaner Bronco Busters.
Yeah, the triple alliteration ad lib.
Yeah. You don't see those very often. That was a really good one.
I'm putting an acid rolled cigarette in here. Don't smoke it.
I mean, if you smoke a little if you want, just leave some for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a wonderful little, like, I don't even know what to call that, like, that device in terms of like a writing device.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it is a Chekhov's gun in a way, you know, where it's like, if you have an acid dipped cigarette, someone has to smoke it by the end of that movie. It'd be pointless to have it and nobody fucking smoke it.
Yeah, what's the point of even mentioning it?
Exactly. So it's like, you mention it, you have to use it. So it is a Chekhov's gun, but just the way that like that happens, and the fact that, you know, like, hopefully you fucking know, like, the real history of what went down. So you know, like, okay, here's the day, here's the night, the actual, you know, the night of it happening. Fucking they drive up in their car. You know, it's like you see the beginnings of what they're gonna do. You know, it's like, oh, they're coming up, they're driving up, they got the gun in the car. You know, and then fucking Brad Pitt smokes that goddamn acid cigarette, and it's like all bets are off because it's like, what is gonna happen now?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck could possibly go on? Why is it an acid? Like, why is he smoking an acid dip cigarette? What the fuck is gonna happen that needs to be a part of it?
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my god, you're so excited to see what's gonna happen, because I'll speak for myself. I wasn't sure what they were going to do, but I was pretty fucking certain. Like, I probably would have said 100 times out of 100, if they had asked, I would have said that they wind up going to Sharon Tate's house.
Yeah.
I never for a second thought that would get diverted.
Yeah.
My thought, I was like, it's probably a stupid idea, but my vision was that, you know, oh, this old school cowboy actor guy out of work, feels shitty. He's gonna overhear what's going on over there, and he's gonna come in guns blazing and save the day. That was sort of where my brain was going with it. And it was like, maybe, you know, he'll probably save them before everyone gets killed, or before anybody gets killed, or maybe just one person gets killed, you know, whatever, but he'll save Sharon Tate. I just did not feel like they were gonna murder a pregnant woman in that movie. It just did not feel like that kind of movie. Like, the amount of violence that winds up happening in that whole climax, that I didn't think was going to be one of them. I was like, there's no way they're going to fucking kill a pregnant Sharon Tate on screen. I don't think, because I'd heard that like that Sharon Tate's like sister had like given her like some of her clothes to wear for the movie, like some actual Sharon Tate clothes to wear and stuff. And I was like, no way the family is that cool with it.
Yeah.
If her horrible visceral death is portrayed on screen.
Yeah.
So I knew something had to change. But fucking when Rick comes out and yells at them in his like bathrobe with a fucking margarita mix in a blender, and they change their plan, I was like, oh fuck, I have no clue where this is going now. It was totally just like, just take me where we're going, movie.
Yeah.
I got nothing. I can't even think ahead for a second. The only thing I could think of, and it was both for me and for you, was like, please just don't let anything happen to Brandy.
Yes.
I just did not want anything to happen to that dog.
No, knowing that she, like, you know, Brad Pitt had her there at the house, you know, and then obviously like went for a walk and, you know,
smoked the cigarette.
Yeah, he smoked the cigarette, and like Rick came out and yelled at the hippies, and hippies drove away. Like, I knew, like, you could see ahead to what
like the
what
threads
he was
were
coming home to,
Yeah,
essentially.
the threads were gonna cross there.
Yeah. It's like, oh no, the beautiful pity. Just let her survive.
Yeah. But man, I will say this for that fucking ending. it's super interesting because it kind of follows a little bit of a pattern of a couple of his recent movies
Mm-hmm.
where you have Inglorious Bastards and you have a team of Jewish soldiers getting like the ultimate fucking revenge and vengeance on Hitler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the Nazis and all that kind of shit. So sort of like a big old like wish fulfillment, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we're gonna fuck you up kind of thing. Same sort of deal in Django.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You get the former slave who gets to just like
Blow up a plantation, essentially.
Like without any kind of punishment, he gets to go and kill slavers.
Yeah.
Like, and get paid for it.
Yeah.
Like, that is the most fuck you
Yeah.
you can get to that. Like, again, another like sort of wish fulfillment kind of thing. And so in this case, especially the character, I mean, it's Cliff that does it, not Rick, but the fact that he's a part of that like old guard of Hollywood, because Sharon Tate getting murdered and all that was a huge just like, and the culture has changed. Things are different, despite it just being like, from 1969 into 1970, now it's the 70s, like, but in more ways than just the date.
Yeah.
Things are no longer like they were. I know they always talk about how it's like the free love and whatever of the 60s died that night, where all of a sudden it was like, okay, the counterculture has turned sour, and it's like, oh fuck, so now everything's kind of changing over. So in that case, old Hollywood kind of getting pushed out the door, and Cliff kind of representing that. It's like, that's Hollywood's fucking revenge on the Manson family for doing what they did and like destroying not
so
just
old
Sharon
Hollywood
Tate,
could
but
just remain Hollywood.
Exactly, but just like essentially taking that vengeance on those fucking hippies and giving them such little dignity.
Yes.
That is the funniest fucking part to me. The fact that they were just
fucking hippies.
Oh my God, just some fucking whacked out hippies that just get their fucking asses handed to them, which again, fucking set up earlier in that movie. If he can beat up Bruce Lee, he can beat up some fucking hippies.
Yes. I don't remember what it was, but the guy that was, when he was holding the gun to Cliff, there was something he said that Cliff started laughing at.
Oh yeah.
And then the guy started laughing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man.
But just
they're all high.
The fact that movie has Tex Watson lose in the craziness battle is what makes it so goddamn funny. It's like he says something, Cliff starts laughing, and then Tex starts laughing back at him, almost like a nervous reflex, like it's like, this guy's nuts.
Why are you reacting like this?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, the fact that he just like finger guns towards him while he's holding the gun on him, and that fucking brilliant, like other than Sadie, what happens to Sadie is pretty goddamn like demoralizing.
Yeah.
For someone who, is like, I'm going to go and kill the people who taught us to kill and fucking teach the world a lesson. And then you get a fucking can of dog food to the face and it just like shatters your fucking nose and face. And you literally just scream until you fucking die for the next like 5 minutes. Like a dog attacks you, you run through a fucking window, you fall into a pool, you get burnt to a crisp by Rick fucking Dalton, and all of that happens.
Flamethrower.
Yeah, and the whole time you're screaming to death. It's like, that's pretty fucking, there's no dignity in that.
Yeah.
And then Squeaky just getting her face smashed in for like a minute straight, which in the moment I was just like, oh my God. And then in my head, I'm like, okay, well, at the very least, I'll give him a pass because he is on acid. So he might not even realize how far he's gone before he realizes, like, okay, well, she's fucking dead.
Yeah.
But honestly, the most indignity that they suffer, like, it takes something real from real life and just basically just flips it on its head and gives him a big middle finger when he fucking tells, when he's like, what's your fucking name again? And he's like, I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business. Like, that's his big fucking, like, I'm a scary, crazy person line that he wanted to use. Like, he did it in real life, and fucking like, that was his big thing. And fucking the response of just, no, it was dumber than that. Like, undercutting it so hard.
Yeah.
Like, that was my favorite moment of, like, just being like, big fuck you to them. And then getting his, like, dick ripped off by the dog.
Yes.
Where it's just like, you stick that dog on everybody. And that just made everything better. I was really fucking scared for that dog during that sequence because I was like, I love that you're destroying them. I hate how close you are to his gun.
Yes.
Don't let this happen.
Also, there's a knife around there somewhere. I don't think it was in Brad Pitt's hip yet.
Yeah. Which is wonderful. Speaking of which, I sort of forgot about that. So when he fell over, when he just like keeled over and dropped to the ground.
Mhm.
I thought he got hit with a ricochet bullet and was dead. Because
Oh.
just before that happens, someone pulls the gun. I think it's
And she's in the pool and she's like firing like straight up.
no, not in the pool. When she's still in the house. So she fires, he drops, she runs through the window
Mhm.
and falls in the pool, and then all that shit happens, and he brings his goddamn flamethrower out.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what a
So
wonderful
the fact that he knew that he didn't know anything going on.
Yeah, exactly.
He's sitting there with his headphones on, just drinking his margarita, floating around in the pool. All of a sudden, this batshit crazy woman comes running in.
Firing a gun in the air.
Yeah.
Just freaking out. I think the title finally really hit home for me when it shows up in the movie. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He goes up to the house, he meets Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring, and like going into the house as the title comes up of Once
Mhm.
Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it really sort of struck me as like, oh, okay. Like as much as it's a reference to like the Sergio Leone
Mhm.
spaghetti westerns, you know, Once Upon a Time in the West or whatever. I probably got that wrong. I forget. Or Once Upon a Time in America that he did. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it was just like, oh yeah, it's a callback to those movies that he
Mhm.
loves. But it's like, oh, but it's. I mean, Once Upon a Time, it's
Yeah.
a fairy tale,
Yeah.
and it really, despite it being like such a technically happy ending, it made me so sad just knowing, you know, where it actually went and
Mhm.
what actually happened. And it's like, as fun as it is to kind of, you know,
Say what if?
yeah, but yeah, exactly. To play the what if game, it still feels just like kind of sad of knowing like, yeah, but it didn't,
Yeah.
you know, like that's a shame because it is a little bit different than like the Hitler thing because it's
Mhm.
like, well, eventually we did fucking get Hitler. He killed
Yeah.
himself, but you know, eventually we stopped it and
In the
it
end,
finished.
Hitler was dead.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. So it's like we just kind of changed the time and place,
Mhm.
gave it a little bit of a different ending there. But I mean,
jazzed it up a bit.
yeah, but in the end, you know, at that point in history, in the Tarantino history, he had still done all the terrible things that he had done. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, we stopped concentration camps. Like, no,
Yeah.
that still happened. They just killed him in a more fitting way, a
Mhm.
more, you know, fulfilling way instead of
Yeah.
letting him kill himself. So it's like, yeah, we fucking machine gun his face. But in this case, it's like the Manson family gets stopped kind of before they even start.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it does feel great, and it's wonderful to, you know, sort of watch them get that sort of comeuppance, and
Mhm.
because even though they hadn't really done anything yet, technically, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like they come in there and they break in, and yeah, they're holding them at gunpoint, but we feel vindicated watching them get their faces smashed in and eaten by
Yeah.
fucking dogs and burned to death. But in real life, it's like, holy shit, they hadn't really even done anything yet.
Yeah.
that we feel great about it, even though technically it was kind of overkill.
Mhm.
But you do still just feel sad at the end. At least, like I said, I did.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, fuck, that's
That would
that
have
would have
been
been
so great.
that would have been great. The highest sort of praise I can give it is that like I can't believe how much that movie made me nostalgic for a time and place I never knew. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's like I'm really honestly not that big of like a the old days were better, like those were the golden age. Like
Yeah.
I like way more movies from now than I do from the 60s and 70s. Like
Yeah.
I like a lot of stuff now. Like I'm not really one of those like I was born in the wrong time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, nah, I'm cool. But just
Mhm.
watching it and sort of just feeling it, that movie felt
Yeah.
like a very specific place. I can only imagine what it's like to people who actually lived there in
Yeah.
the 60s, you
Yeah.
know, through that time period and being like, holy shit. It's kind of the perfect fucking polar opposite of Hateful Eight. Where it's like Hateful Eight is my fucking go-to, like, oh, is it the dead of fucking winter and it's cold as shit and everything? It's like that's the movie to watch.
Mhm.
And so in this case, it's like, oh, is it a fucking beautiful August night
Yeah.
in the, you know, summertime night? That movie feels like it.
Oh yeah.
And I loved it to death. I don't know where I would rank it in my favorite Tarantino movies.
Mhm.
You know, like I very much loved Reservoir Dogs for like most of my life, and it was probably my top one for a long time.
Yeah.
Hateful Eight did take its place. I fucking love that movie, and I love every goddamn frame of that movie. So Hateful Eight's clearly at the top. Reservoir Dogs is right in there. Inglourious Bastards chasing just behind. You know, right?
Mhm.
They're all hanging out
Yeah.
together. I feel like this one has earned a spot right up there. I don't think it would take top dog spot,
Yeah.
but it's definitely one that's like I need to see it a couple more times
Mhm.
and really appreciate it. What was your favorite like line, or at least one of them? One of your favorites, because I know it's so hard to pick that kind of stuff.
And away we go.
Yes. Both of them.
Both of
The-
them. So perfectly Brad Pitt. I loved it. It's so great.
Oh man, that was fucking good.
Uh,
I think again, it's a moment like used in the trailer,
mhm.
but it's one, a very Tarantino-esque line, and two, such a Brad Pitt line. Like that it coalesces so perfectly.
Mhm.
But the whole like, my hands are registered weapons. If I get in a fight and accidentally kill you, I go to jail. And the whole like, anybody accidentally kills anybody in a fight, they go to jail. It's called manslaughter. Like prime Tarantino type line with the perfect delivery from Brad Pitt.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh
Ugh.
man, oh I loved it.
He was so charming.
Well, I think that's gonna have to wrap it up for today. So that was our that was Popcorn for Dinner's review of Once Upon a
Mhm.
Time in Hollywood. I guess you'd call it a review. I'm not really
Yeah.
gonna give it a grade. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna give it thumbs or
It was
stars or. I liked it. I liked
was
it a
our
lot.
overview.
Yeah, essentially. I like it a lot.
It's good.
Yeah. So I'm Jeff,
I'm Kelly.
and away we go.